today's Spectral City, Seeing Beyond Hansfeld Unit. Pranams to the Almighty. Pranams to all my teachers, because of whom I am standing in front of you all today. To talk on the dual energy city was introduced by Hansfeld in 1973 and subsequently by Alvarez and Makowinsky in 1976. Basically, it acquires image using two energy. One is at a higher level kV, specifically at 140, and at a lower level, preferably at 80 kV. So the dual energy CT allows the analysis of energy dependent changes in the attenuation of different structural materials. So what are the dual energy CT we have based on the sources and based on the detectors? We'll see one by one. So first thing is a dual source where we have two separate source, two X-ray sets with coaxially attached two sets of detectors. The second option is like there's only one X-ray tube and appropriately aligned detectors, but the KV switching happens in the same X-ray tube rapidly, which we call it as a rapid KV switching. The third option is called as a dual layer detector or the sandwich type detector, where you have two set of detector where one detector will analyze the low energies and the other detector will evaluate the higher energies. The last option is something is called as a sequential acquisition, where you have only one set of detector and the X-ray tube, but what we have to do is we do two set of imaging sequentially, one after the other, with one with the higher kV and next with the lower kV, then we will go for the analysis. So the type of detectors we generally use is energy integrated detector, where the X-rays, when it falls on the scintillating material, they have been converted to light energy, which is further converted into electronic signals by photodiodes. But what is important to know is, when we are using this energy integrated detectors, when we use the scintillators, the light which has been formed will disperse in all directions. This light should not cross over to the other set of detector elements, so there will be crosstalk or the noises. In order to reduce this crosstalk or the noises, there is something called as a septa within this. Whenever there is a septa present, that location becomes a dead zone where the signal is not appropriately captured. So there is a loss of signal over there. And also always remember one thing, whenever there is an energy conversion happening, every time there is a conversion happening, there will be something called as a conversion loss. So first step, when it gets X-ray photons converts into light, there is some loss. When this light is dispersing, again some dead loss. Once this light is getting converted by the photodiode into signal, there also there will be some loss will be there. To overcome this, now we have the high-end diode and semiconductor based thing. We now have something called as a photon counting detectors, which are the highest end which we currently have. So PCT detector uses collimator blades with an electrical field to separate the pixel signal. See, you don't have a physical collimators, so the dead space is avoided. So every element is used for detecting the signals. So there is a high improvement in the efficiency. So this is how it is. What happens in PCD or the photon counting detector? It evaluates every single energy, and we can separate which part of energy is needed for construction of our images. This is what is more pertinent about the PCD. Just a glimpse on the basic interactions of X-ray. The two important that comes into our diagnostic ranges, one is the Compton effect, where you get kind of scattering. The next is the photoelectric effect, which gives much of your contrast. Why is this so important is that the iodine has a higher attenuation difference than bone with the minimal change in the kV range, so it can differentiate it very keenly. So we have something called as a DHU, which is called as the low energy and the high energy. We are going to create a ratio which can able to identify which type of stones or the element we have. So this is called as attenuation ratio, what we use. We use this for analysis of renal calculus, which we regularly do it in our setup. So what we do, we take CT images with two set of KVs, then we create the region of interest and find the HU, and we transfer them into respective formulas to get the values like this. See, we have two set of images. This is fixed values which we have in the references. So we can identify whether it is a uric acid calculus when the range is between 1.22 and Stewart calculus and calcium based calculus. So with this DHU values, you can easily identify which type of calculus it is. You can even put it in a report and give, so it will be easier for the respective urologist to decide their treatment modality. These are some of the cases which you have done at 80 kVp and 135 kVp. The attenuation ratio is 1.23, which substantiates to cysteine. The case 2, we have the attenuation ratio closer to 1.4. Again, the calculate type is calcium. And here we have the attenuation ratio is 0.9, the calculate type is uric acid. So these studies, what we have shown in the earlier 3 cases or the other cases, all the stones which have retrieved from the patient were also sent for biochemical analysis, and we were able to find it has got a very good correlation. So this can still be, it becomes a very good biomarker values. When it comes to DECT or the dual energy CT or the spectrum, it's highly useful for evaluation of gout diseases. A touch glimpse on photon counter detecting, you can see here every single type of energy can be evaluated separately because of the detector mechanism here. There's something called as virtual monochromatic imaging. You take an image, you have the polychromatic rays which is actually coming, but the detector is able to pick up each and every photons with their respective energies. It's all collected. Now we can segregate at what energy level we want the image. So we can make it as a virtually monoenergetic image at whatever the range we want. So this is how it happens. You have already get a sinogram. Now you have an uncorrected values. Now I want to evaluate which image I want. For metal correction, I'm taking only the metal images. Once I correct it, I get only the metals removed, like Mars software, how it works. Even in DECT and spectral imaging, we can still do it. What you have to do is you have to do an integrated registration in your system. You take both the images. So now we can, once you subtract and take only the VMA images, you can get a Mars images perfectly like this. These are some of the cases which we have done. Before Mars with so much of streak artifact, you can see with the application of the Mars, we are able to get a very clear images. So this is how we able to do it. You can get it in a very lower kV level also, and also an optimal kV, and we can even fuse those images to have better image quality. There's something called as a KH imaging, the same thing. Only thing is you need at least 3 data sets to integrate the images. Once you have the 3 data sets minimum, you have something called as an inverse KH imaging, where you can evaluate the calculus even in presence of the contrast image. Generally what happens when we apply a contrast, the calcium or the calculus get masked. But when we use this methodology, even in presence of contrast, we are still able to differentiate it very easily. So one more thing, very useful thing is, you can even evaluate, quantify the amount of iodine which has been taking up. We can quantify in the arterial phase of any of the tumor value. So what happens is, if you have to see the value is more in the arterial phase, it always prevails that the recurrence of such tumors are very high post-surgically. It also becomes a guideline. You can take these values. So what goes on the aspects of spectral CT as a merit, like we have the virtual non-contrast imaging, we can do material decomposition, monochromatic imaging, quantification of iodine uptake. This is very highly used in a day-to-day basis nowadays. Iodine and water-based imaging, metallic artifact reduction, gout imaging, and effective atomic-based Z imagings. So these are my some of the references.